There are plenty of traits that come package and parcel with horror villains. They tend to be merciless, ruthless, and surprisingly creative with how they eliminate their victims. However, another key characteristic shared by many evildoers in the genre is determination. Their actions may be unforgivable, but it's impressive the lengths some horror villains go to get what they want. I'm Sean Ferrick for What Culture Horror, and here are 10 horror movie villains who went to great lengths. Number 10. John Ryder, the Hitcher. In The Hitcher, Jim Halsey's life turns upside down after picking up psychotic drifter John Ryder. When he realizes Ryder is bad news, Jim tosses him out of the vehicle. However, instead of finding other people to terrorize, Ryder obsesses over Jim, frustrated that he got away. Hijacking a truck, Ryder tries to run Jim off the road, blowing up a gas station in the process. And after Jim is framed for Ryder's crimes, the crazed hitchhiker has the opportunity to get away scot-free. Rather than riding off into the sunset, though, Ryder locates the police station Jim is residing in and slays the cops. Though some still believe Jim is the killer, Ryder keeps murdering everyone in the area to keep the cat and mouse game going, and when the insidious vagrant learns Jim has a soft spot for a waitress, he has her ripped in half. Though Ryder is arrested, he breaks free shortly after and continues tormenting Jim instead of running away. Just as a reminder, John Ryder hunted Jim Halsey with the same determination as a Terminator purely because the innocent driver outsmarted him during their first encounter. Number 9. Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. This list wouldn't be complete without Friday the 13th's arch-villain Jason Voorhees. After all, the hockey-masked revenant can't stop hacking and slashing no matter how many times he's put in the ground. Even though the 8th entry, Jason Takes Manhattan, is a sore spot for the franchise, it perfectly demonstrates how the relentless machete-wielding zombie is. In this installment, Jason is dead set on murdering one specific teen called Rennie for some inexplicable reason. After seemingly trapping her on a ship, Rennie and her companions use a lifeboat to escape to New York. When the Crystal Lake Fiend makes his way to the Big Apple, he has countless people to kill to satiate his bloodlust. And yet, Jason continues pursuing Rennie, ignoring thousands of other potential victims. Anytime someone stands in Jason's way, the mute maniac quickly disposes of them before returning to the hunt. Once Rennie has repeatedly evaded her pursuer, you'd think Jason would call it a day and bother someone who's less trouble. Instead, the hulking brute keeps tracking Rennie through the streets of Manhattan, the subway, and even the sewers. Number 8. Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. The 1970s and 80s give birth to many seemingly unkillable horror icons, including Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Pinhead, and Jason Voorhees. But in a way, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the most impressive. He's not a dream demon, a Cenobite, or a zombie. At the end of the day, the chainsaw-wielding cannibal is a mortal man. Despite this, Leatherface can withstand a baffling amount of punishment. For example, in Tobe Hooper's iconic original TCM movie, the rogue kept chasing his prey even after his leg was sawed down to the bone. In the first sequel, Leatherface survived a chainsaw through the gut and being blown up by a grenade, and the 2003 remake had the demented butcher refuse to stay down, despite having his arm hacked off. Although Leatherface is in his 70s by the time of 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he's lost none of his drive. After being shot repeatedly and taking an uppercut to the face with an active chainsaw, Leatherface finally appears to be down for good, only to be on his feet again 30 seconds later and back to lopping off heads. It's clear no matter what is thrown at Leatherface, he'll just keep coming. Number 7. Adrian Griffin, the Invisible Man. The Invisible Man opens with Cecilia Cass leaving her domineering partner Adrian Griffin, and when C hears Griffin has killed himself, she believes she can finally move on with her life. However, after she's repeatedly attacked by an unseen force, C learns Adrian has created a light-cancelling suit and is using it to torment her. Since nobody can see Griffin in this guise, everyone around C believes she's losing her mind. Though the rogue could have killed her several times, Adrian finds it more satisfying to drive C crazy and frame her for his attacks. But that's not the only aspect that highlights Griffin's deranged ambition, for by perfecting invisibility, he has created the world's most advanced cloaking device. With this technology, the evil inventor could become one of the most revolutionary scientists of the century, and yet Adrian Griffin chose to use his billion-dollar tech to ruin C's life purely because he couldn't let her go. Griffin's actions prove he's not just driven by power or revenge, but control, and since he couldn't control C, he'll follow her to the ends of the earth to destroy her. Number 6. John Doe 7. In David Fincher's dark thriller, John Doe has become disillusioned by human society, inspiring him to target people who represent the 7 deadly sins: greed, gluttony, sloth, envy, pride, lust, and wrath. Now, it's clear Doe's modus operandi has been methodically planned, since he has to locate 7 suitable targets and figure out what execution best represents their sin. However, two parts of Doe's scheme deserve special mention. For Sloth, John had a drug dealer strapped to a bed, mutilated him for months, and severed the dealer's hand to use for the previous victim, so those fingerprints would lead detectives Somerset and Mills to Sloth. When the detectives arrived, they realized Sloth had been imprisoned there for exactly 1 year, meaning Doe had worked out the exact day the authorities would arrive months in advance. But that's not all. In the third act, John Doe embraces lust as his sin and kills Mills' wife, decapitates her, and mails her head to her husband. In a blind rage, Mills becomes wrath and shoots Doe dead. Still, John died satisfied since his meticulously detailed plan played out precisely how he wanted. Number 5. John Kramer, the Saw franchise. Saw's primary antagonist, Jigsaw, aka John Kramer, might be the most single-minded dead man walking in cinema. Despite being elderly and battling terminal brain cancer, Kramer is determined to perform deadly trials on his victims. For these tests, Jigsaw needs to build dozens of elaborate booby traps, and even though he's a master engineer, performing these tasks requires a staggering amount of time, effort, and money. Added to that, John has to scout for abandoned buildings and create a myriad of recordings to instruct his unwilling contestants how to survive, plus construct a marionette puppet to move on a toy tricycle for certain challenges, because reasons. John Kramer put so much effort into his legacy, it's no surprise he has multiple protégés to assist him. However, there's so much bad blood between his helpers, Kramer was forced to devise contingencies if any of them got out of line, creating more work for himself. Even when John is on his deathbed undergoing brain surgery, he's still carrying out multiple plans, including some which will only be initiated after he dies. That is dedication. Number 4. Mary Shaw, Dead Silence. Few horror villains can hold a grudge like Dead Silence's big bad Mary Shaw. Although she was a respected ventriloquist during the 1940s, Mary was left humiliated during a show when a kid in the audience mocked her skills. Enraged, Shaw killed the boy, compelling the townspeople to execute her. So hell-bent on revenge, Mary's spirit passed on to her dolls, using them to slaughter this child's family members. Since the film's protagonist, Jamie Ashen, is the last member of that bloodline, Shaw will stop at nothing to end his life. Jamie learns about Mary Shaw while speaking with his paralysed father, Edward, and his new wife, Ella, leading Jamie to destroy all of Shaw's dolls during the film's climax, seemingly giving her no conduit to survive. When Jamie returns to his father's estate, though, he sees Edward's spine has been replaced with an apparatus to control him like a puppet, as Jamie realizes Mary Shaw is Ella and has been using ventriloquism to simulate that Edward was still alive. From there, Mary transfers her essence into Jamie's body, ending the Ashen bloodline. It's a shame to see evil triumph, but you have to almost applaud Shaw for defying death, worming her way into Jamie's family, and fooling him hook, line, and sinker to achieve her goal. Number 3. Lena, Esther, Orphan. Orphan centers around Lena Kramer, an adult dwarf who resembles a child. Since the diminutive killer has never felt accepted, she'll do everything in her power to have a family. Institutionalized when prequel picture Orphan First Kill opens, this innocent-looking sociopath would break out of those confines and convince the rest of the world that she was a young girl. Although Lena is ruthless and profoundly intelligent, it's her dedication that stands out most. Notably, she escaped from a fortified institution armed with only a pencil, she mastered the piano, painting and singing so she'd be more desirable to potential parents, and even passed herself off as missing girl Esther Albright so that she could be taken in by the Albright family. After that didn't pan out in First Kill, Lena, Esther, manipulated the Coleman family once they adopted her. When adoptive mother Kate suspected the girl of hiding something, Lena broke her own arm in 2 places and pretended Kate was responsible. Also, Kate's husband John would turn against his wife, leading Lena to try and seduce John. Also, that Lena wears fluffy clothes to hide her figure and fake kitty teeth to maintain her childlike appearance shows how committed she is to her act. Number 2. Lee Woo-jin, Oldboy. In Oldboy, teenager Oh Dae-soo discovered his classmate Lee Woo-jin was having an incestuous relationship with his own sister Lee Soo-ah. When Dae-soo spread rumors that Soo-ah was pregnant with her brother's baby, she took her own life. Blaming Dae-soo for his sister lover's death, Woo-jin swore to destroy his life, although rather than killing him, Woo-jin took revenge to a whole new level, as many years later, Woo-jin had Dae-soo imprisoned inside a sealed room. Throughout his incarceration, Dae-soo never saw his captors nor understood why he was put there, and when Dae-soo slit his wrists, Woo-jin saves him to prolong his suffering. Despite spending 15 years locked up, it's nothing compared to what comes next. After Dae-soo is released, Woo-jin uses hypnosis to urge him to unknowingly have sex with his daughter, Mi-do. Upon later learning the truth, Dae-soo is overcome with shame, acknowledging he's committed incest, just like Woo-jin had. Terrified, Mi-do will learn she slept with her father. Dae-soo cuts off his own tongue out of penance. Though Wu Jin agrees not to divulge the truth to Mi Du, he plays a recording of her and Dae-soo having sex on loudspeakers to humiliate him one last time. In hindsight, it genuinely feels like Wu Jin has been scheming every day for decades to make Dae-soo's punishment as unbearable as possible. Number 1. Red Us. In Us's prologue, young Adelaide walks into a funhouse where she encounters her doppelganger. Skip ahead 33 years later, Adelaide and her family are tormented by their doubles, who call themselves the Tethered, and Adelaide's counterpart, Red, reveals how they are clones created by the government to control society. When the experiment failed, the clones were abandoned underground. Desperate to take over the surface world, Red explains how she is ready to replace Adelaide. Though the family successfully kill their doubles, the final moments reveal a big twist as it turns out Adelaide swapped with her clone when they met in the funhouse, meaning she is one of the Tethered, not Red. Although this revelation is shocking, it also shows how boundlessly strong-willed Red is. She prepared for over 3 decades to exact her revenge, not just on Adelaide, but on the world. Since the Tethered are simple-minded, Red had to organize millions of them by herself, readying them for the inevitable invasion, although she was nice enough to make them all matching uniforms. On top of that, Red coordinated the Tethered to line up throughout the entire country, making it impossible for the government to sweep the cloning experiment under the rug. Even though Red never saw her plan come to fruition, there's no question her decades of planning paid off.